A very good afternoon and welcome to the program. Of course, if you're just tuning in right now, this is the touchline on Y254. My name is Maxwell Wasike, dissecting about matter sports both locally and beyond. 1 to 3 p.m. every Saturday we do this, and your Saturday afternoon will never be dull and boring if you're staying tuned to this particular show. Of course, right now we're discussing the fate of the national team Harambee Stars, especially after the redeployment of a man who was the tactician in acting capacity, Stanley Okumbi, and his assistant Franco Una, after some sort of awful show during the friendlies against Comoros, ending 1-1 and being beaten by Central African Republic 3-2. Football Kenya Federation making this announcement, which was not expected by many, considering how they have vehemently defended their choice in Stanley Okumbi, who had been relegated to assistant after the hiring of 61-year-old Belgian international Paul Put, who also left citing personal reasons. And now with me in the studio on the set, of course, is Steve Omondi, a man who featured for the national team Harambee Stars under the late Reinhard Fabish is joining us for the first time. George Omondi is still with us, and Ronald Okoth, a man who's been on this platform before, having played for Mathare United, Gor Mahia and Western Stima, is also with us. Starting with you, Steve Omondi, what's the fate of the national team Harambee Stars after Stanley Okumbi was redeployed? As we speak right now, we don't have a tactician.
The national team is always going to be there, whether there's a tactician or not. It's a matter of just redeploying ourselves and making sure that the players are well catered for. The federation has a big task of appointing somebody very fast, because the next match is just around the corner. So it is something that has to be done as fast as possible. And also, just saying that the team has to be there. We cannot break our national team, so it's going to be there.
Do you think the decision to have him redeployed elsewhere was justified by FKF, or he ought to have been given much needed time? Of course, Kenyans thrive on patience.
When we talk about time, I think he has been there a while. If the decision was taken to redeploy him, that must have been something which was already there on the table, because you cannot say it's something that just came about the other day. So in a matter of having him redeployed, we can say redeployment sometimes is not usually the medicine of something. If he can't do the work, he just can't do the work. But you're saying if you are redeploying him, and you've seen maybe is a problem, it's just like suspending a problem, and that I think is not an option. So if he is capable of handling the national team, he's also capable of handling the under-23. So redeployment doesn't justify anything.
George, what do you think? Probably, what do you think must have contributed immensely towards his redeployment? The dismal performance during friendlies against Comoros and CAR, or the other factors, and maybe pressure from Kenyans as well might have also contributed?
Well, everything has just contributed, from the match to the cry for the fans and the whole country, because I think maybe he may have been given to handle the two matches, just to see whether he can make a big difference. But just like Mondi has said, it seems it was a big task for him. So going back to the under-20, to being redeployed to the under-20, that means the FKF still have hopes in him and believe in him that he can do something to the federation. So by going to the under-20, it means they're trying to see whether he can nurture the younger boys. Being that he went through the Maisa system, it shows that maybe he can deal with the young boys better. So our first task tomorrow is against Rwanda in a friendly, so which is we may start gauging him from there. But still, I believe going back to the under-20, it means he needs to be stable there. Maybe he stays there for a while and ensures that he handles the team without any interference. Maybe you can see results, just maybe.
Ronald Okoth, if there is one tactician on Kenyan soil who's been associated with being conversant with youth setup, is Stanley Okumbi, alongside people like John Kamau. He's been redeployed to being in charge of under-20. It's something that has not gone well with most Kenyans, especially football followers, who think that the FKF ought to have, completely parted ways with him without even giving him another alternative slot elsewhere. Do you agree, or are you in disagreement?
Okay, I think coach like Stanley, okay, if you look at way back, he's been with Nick since way back, even before Nick was elected the president. Yeah, you find that Stanley Okumbi used to manage Nick's team Kariobangi Sharks, even before they were promoted into the nationwide. So Nick knows him better inside out, and even back then when I was still playing in a team called Harambee Stars, we used to play a lot of friendly matches with Kariobangi Sharks, and Nick used to come with Stanley, and okay, he understands Mr. Kumbi way much better than most of us. So I think the decision to redeploy him to the under-20 side, I think he will do well with the under-20 because he's proven that in the past that he can manage the under-20 side. So I think maybe it's time for him also to at least to maybe prove others wrong that he can do something.
Some sort of technical hitches, but being addressed by our technical crew is discussing the fate of the national team Harambee Stars after redeployment of Stanley Okumbi, the tactician, now being taken elsewhere to be in charge of under-20. Awful show as far as friendlies are concerned during international break, playing to Comoros, ending 1-1 and being beaten by Central African Republic by 3-2. You see, those two friendlies and those two teams, both Comoros and CAR, are not ranked way above the national team Harambee Stars, and something that has elicited reactions and heated debate on social media platforms from Kenyan football followers who think that we ought to have beaten the two if we are serious about qualification to 2019 African Cup of Nations in Cameroon. Remember, in September, we're playing the Black Stars of Ghana as we seek to qualify. Remember the last time the national team featured during continental competition was in 2004 in Tunisia under Jacob Ghost Mle, several years down the line, and we're still looking forward to making it happen. But Steve, you played for the national team Harambee Stars, and some sort of comparison during your heydays and now. What has gone wrong in between, and in terms of transition, how has it been like?
Well, what I can say is, that was a different time, different era. Things were different then. You see now the way things are being run now, the league also has its own issues. Because as of now, in as much as we want to discuss the national team, we cannot set aside not discussing the league. We are having teams playing the league. Some have not been paid for like 3 months. The same players with the same attitude. You cannot just carry them and go and play in a continental level, because that's one place where it needs top concentration. So currently we're having a problem with our league, which we cannot even wish away. So first of all, and the most important thing is, first of all, let's take care of the league. So that when we have the good players who can play, now we can have the rest. Because having players who are not being paid, going and linking up with the players who are already being paid, that is now, you see, you'll have like two sets of players in the same team.
Those who are motivated and those who are not motivated.
Then when we were playing, it was like everybody was from home. So it was, if you're having the same situation, everybody had the same situation. It's not like now when you have players playing in Europe, others are playing in Kenya. Somebody has not been paid in the last 3 months. The others have just been paid the other week. So for myself, I see like, let's first tackle the problem that we have at hand as fast as possible, so that now we can move forward. Because in as much as we are trying to have players playing for the national team, we have players who are going to the national team just because national team can pay well. So that now I'm from my club, let me just go to the national team just for the sake of having the money. But if you see, if a player is stable in the team, it means that we'll have quality players in the national team who doesn't have to think about am I being paid or not. So currently we are having a psychological problem which must be tackled first. So in as much as we will discuss the coach, we'll discuss the team, we'll discuss everything, we have a problem at hand.
George, I don't know whether you agree with Steve that the underlying reasons is KPL, which lacks a sponsor as we speak right now, and players going through turmoil in terms of unpaid allowances, their welfare not being well taken care of. Just like you hinted before, Nakumatt FC players, I think 2 weeks ago at Kenyatta Stadium in Machakos County, one of the football stakeholders, Jacob Ghost Mle, had to come to their rescue and convince them and give them sort of, small amounts of money to encourage them to go to the field and play. Maybe, do you think KPL having a well-structured top flight is the foundation of, the national team, even in terms of having them perform very well?
Yeah, that's very true. Because even if you look at continentally, the North African countries' system is always top level.
Yes.
Their league is always good, and that's why they always perform continentally. Go even back to Europe, look at Real Madrid and Barcelona, the likes of Bayern Munich. Their league is very much stable, and that's why the same form they bring back to the national team. So I concur with Steve. We need sponsors very fast to ensure that these players get their money. Away from maybe, there are rumors that Sportpesa may be coming back. So if they do come back, the better. And Nakumatt, which had so many problems in terms of monetary funds terms and paying players, there are rumors that the club has been sold to some tycoons, and maybe they may solve the issue very soon. The best thing, football is a professional. It's pro, and maybe it's like a work. So when you're playing pro and you're not being paid, you can't give results. So the soonest the league gets sponsorship and the players get their dues, the better. Away from that, we still need the TV, a platform for the TV rights. You know, when SuperSport days, the teams used to get grants for the TV rights. Right now, we have live matches, but it's like they're being beamed pro bono. It's free to air. So players don't get anything, and teams don't get nothing from them. So the soonest we get sponsors, and maybe we get a deal for the TV rights, the better. The teams will be good, players will perform, because when you go to the pitch and you know that you have an allowance, you have your salary there, things will be all right, and players will perform, and at least we'll make steps.
So, of course, Ronald, of course, talking to you, you've played for several clubs locally, Mathare United, Western Stima, Gor Mahia. You've also played for even some of the National Super League sides, KCB, the one that you've just recently featured for. How does it feel when a player is going through such times, no paid, unpaid allowances, unpaid dues, hard economic times? What does it make a player feel like?
I think, honestly, it's so demoralizing. But again, I thank God because I haven't been able to be in such a situation, because most of the clubs I've played for, they've never had such problems during my time when I was there. I think the only time I experienced such a problem was when I was playing for a team called Congo United back then, but it's now defunct. But generally, it's so demoralizing, because even the other day I was just speaking to some of my friends, the players. They were telling me that they feel like they want to quit football. But they're telling me, at the same time, they're telling me that, okay, me, I'm lucky, I've gone to school, I have some papers, I'm doing something on the side. But then they were saying that they are it's like they're in prison, they don't have anything else to do. It's only football that they're depending on. But at the end of the day, they have nothing to take home. It was so painful, because they're in their 20s, they're not even, most of them are below 25. So, you know, it's so hurting when you hear your fellow players saying that they feel like quitting football, but at the same time, they don't have anything else to do, because there's no sponsorship, there's no anything. So I think the sooner we get a sponsor for our league, it will be better for most of these players. Yeah.
Do you think that is a statement in a negative way to the upcoming talents, especially in schools, who are so passionate about football and they're looking forward to joining some of these high-profile KPL clubs? Is it a demotivation factor?
Yeah, it's a demotivation factor, because it's open for everyone to see. Currently, our state of football, it's terrible. We can't hide away from the fact that there's no money to pay. Maybe the big teams are the ones that are paying their players, but most of these other clubs, they don't have anything to give their players. So again, I think it's time for all the football stakeholders to come together so that we can join our heads, and maybe if there's, I heard that there's something they call the salary cap, something like that. Because even, you see, we find that most of these clubs, most of them are paying peanuts. They're not even paying properly. And I was also speaking to a friend of mine today in the morning. He works with a company where they value athletes. And he was telling me that one thing we players in the Kenya Premier League is like, we don't want to use our knowledge. We want to be taken advantage of. So he was telling me that it's high time, most of us players, we know our value. If you know your value as a player, if you know what you can contribute, you're supposed to sign a contract according to your value. So he's planning to maybe partner with most clubs so that at least he can educate players on the need to know their value, so that even when you're signing contract, you sign a contract according to your worth. You're not underpaid, you're not overpaid. Yeah. So I think it's something that we need to look up to.
Steve, over to you. What's the moral lesson of all this? Is it high time now you know, players, footballers can have another alternative, can get credentials in terms of academic, go professional, and even study, so that when things hit a snag, as far as football is concerned, they can have another, you know, option. Because I've spoken to a lot of former players who've been on this show, Boniface Ambani, Simon Mulama, Anthony Modo Kimani, doing lucratively well outside there, having some alternative ventures besides football, especially after quitting, and they're not complaining. Same to you. Is it the way to go now?
I think education is always the key. In as much as you are using your talent, you must always pursue education to the highest level that you can have. I think that one can secure your future after you've finished your career, or maybe you have something that happened midway through your career. But having said that, I think football is a lucrative sport everywhere in the world. And it's much demoralizing to see that we as Kenyan, we've not taken that route to see that how can football be a lucrative business. Coming back to most of the clubs, starting with the small clubs up to the bigger clubs, in as much as you don't have fan base, you will not ever sustain football. Because it means you must have people watching that football. Even all these TV rights you are talking about, everything, sponsors, all boils down to, do you even have fans? I'm a sponsor, I'm giving out your money.
Yes.
What value,
what
is the value for me giving you my money? It turns back to clubs. These clubs have to tap into the fans. They have to come up with structures, building fan bases, people come to watch the games, so that now they start earning from these clubs. Big teams like Gor Mahia and FC Leopards. Sorry to say that these are the biggest clubs in our country, but they are the ones who are giving bad example. If a club can have any stadia full in the country, it means that it can have revenue from those fans. How is the management engaging these fans so that they can have a day-to-day running? These clubs must be given back to the fans so that they can have branches whereby they can be collecting money to have this. And you don't even need much. You don't need people giving out their millions. You only give somebody giving 150, 20 shillings. But if you have so many people giving out this is the solution to our problem. Have funds who are contributing to clubs. So once we have funds, now we can now sit down with the sponsor and negotiate how much are we going to give. Ronald is talking about a player having a value. A value of a player is how many people are following you, how many people are watching you. So that now if you have so many people are watching, now we have value. Now we can talk about sponsor. The sponsorship that we are having in Kenya, these are not sponsorships. We are talking about somebody giving us 75 million per year. You calculate 75 million divided by 12 teams by 12 months. You'll find teams having like 350,000 a month. When a club taking a team from Nairobi to Mombasa, you'll take like 100,000. So you'll use 100,000. So this 300 is not even enough. The clubs are supposed to go back and have fans in the game so that even you TV guys will have value. You cannot just beam a game live in empty stands. What is that? What value does it even bring? You need to have people to watch, and this comes down to the clubs. The clubs have to start investing in people coming to watch the games. From here now, we'll have all these issues will be solved because we'll have fans, money will be coming in, players are going to be... Now we'll have whereby, which player do I want? Because I have the money now. But currently, it is just, we are just trying. We are not even doing anything.
Top-notch discussions we don't want to miss every Saturday. From 1 to 3, our analysts and panelists saying it as it is, and being blunt and candid and frank as well. George Omond, now, of course, some sort of marketing and branding aspect is what Steve trying to talk about. How can our clubs market ourselves if they have to attract concrete sponsorship, corporate interests, and struggling financially will be something of the past, and even resorting to politicians for handout, which is a short-term, solution. There has to be some long-term structured program that would ensure continuity.
Yeah, talking of continuity, just like Steve has said, football is a game of numbers, and the number starts from the fans to the pitch, to the pitches we have, to the players. Now, if we need good football, it means every team has to invest in the lower tier. Like, let's have players playing from the basics, like every level. Let's nurture our talent from under 12 moving forward. Well, during last season we had like we used to have the under 20 teams, which used to like act like a feeder program to the senior team. If we need to have beautiful football, we have to nurture these kids from the lower level. We don't go to high school and pick someone, bring him to the team, expecting him to do good. You know, everyone who has followed football knows that basics, you need to learn your basics by the time you're 16. If you're past 16 and you have not learned the basics, it means even the coach who is taking you through the steps will have a hard time. So if you nurture these kids from the time they are young and ensure that they're in the setup, like Maisa used to do,
yes,
it means that these players will grow and embrace the system and maybe play to some certain level. So for a team to play beautiful football, it means they need the structures. And by saying so, it means now the teams have to invest in the structure. So that me as a fan, I'll be encouraged to go to the stadium to watch beautiful football. Because I can't go and watch, how do you call this? That's poor football. Yani, piga tuende, one tisa, you know? That we call it one tisa. Yani, start with the goalkeeper to the striker. And let's move on. We need to see beautiful football. We need to see tiki-taka. So by bringing fans back to the stadium, it means we need beautiful football, and it all starts with the clubs. So that the management comes in and say, this player, whenever this team plays, we have numbers. That's why we can give you our branding rights. We can give you a shirt, a sponsorship for our shirts, so that you bring in numbers, and maybe with them they get what we call marketing. Because by the time you're beaming matches and we have SportPesa all over in Africa, it means they're getting marketing and value for their money too. So it all goes back to the start, to the clubs. And again, the government has to have to ensure that we have stadiums. City Stadium, one of the oldest stadiums in this country, is difficult and dead for like 2 seasons ago. We used to call it Tok Komwanda. When Gor Mahia was playing there, we even used to have the bridge branch. People used to stand on the bridge to watch football because they love football. But now when you take football always to Machakos, I'm not saying Machakos can't handle them.
That monotony.
Yeah. For me to live here, go to Machakos to watch Gor Mahia or Mathare United, it means I'm going to watch beautiful football that value for my money. So the government also has to work on the infrastructure. We have to ensure that we have stadiums in each and every county to ensure that at least football can be played from the junior level to the higher level without struggling. Yeah.
Ronald Okoth, over to you now. Of course, as Steve said earlier, football is a lucrative entity, and we've seen several footballers, both current and former, doing very well courtesy of football. Didier Drogba, former Ivory Coast international and Chelsea striker, nowadays being actively used in Confederation of African Football events, even moderating during CAF Awards. How comes, it's a total different situation from that of Kenya, where players who form an integral part as far as the sport is concerned are wallowing in darkness in terms of their interests not being well taken care of? Is it a case where the administrators or those in management are the ones benefiting at the expense of the players?
Oh, I think when it comes to that, generally, I think it also comes to management, because first of all, we players, we don't have an agent, somebody to advise you on how to use your money, how to save your money, how to just invest your money on. So I think that's why most of the times you see some of us players, when we are done playing football, we start languishing. Maybe we start calling for help here and there. But I think it also goes down also to the clubs. Clubs need to start taking the players' welfare seriously, from recruiting the fans to also making sure the players that they sign are in good hands. So personally, I think it's time for, even here in Kenya, most of us players should have an agent or somebody to just advise you, like the way KEFA does. Sivia Kante, even Makori, the former president Mutiso. I think they're doing a good job currently by advising players on how to use their money, how to invest on different programs, just psychologically preparing the player on the life after football. So I think it's something we need to do consistently, so that even the upcoming players can know that there's a life after football. And then also another thing I also like championing for is get your papers in school. The little money you get, make sure you invest it well, or maybe on some education program that at least will help you on the side after football. That's why most of the players I've talked to, most of them tell me, okay, you're better off. At least you have something on the side to do because you've gone to education. You've got some education. Us, we don't have some papers to back us up. But I tell them that all is not lost. Because at the end of the day, there are programs that people can do that is not basically, you don't necessarily have to go and get a degree or a master's so that you can be successful. But at least some little knowledge to help you maybe start your business, a business startup somewhere will help. So I think we need advisors. We need people who are ready to put us on the line.
On a light note, Ian Waga is tweeting and is asking whether you've left football for good because of what players go through in terms of unpaid allowances, unpaid dues. Maybe have you left football, or are you looking forward coming back again? On a light note though.
No, I was just taking a break. I needed to cool off my mind from a lot of things. So I was just taking my time out a bit.
But you'll be back shortly?
Maybe. Maybe.
Steve, overall, our football, what's the way forward? What can we do, the stakeholders? What can they do in general to ensure that, we restore the lost glory of the sport? Because Kenya, in as much as we've failed to feature on continental and even international fronts as far as football is concerned, we're well known for, the sport. We have talent, especially at the grassroots, much untapped potential, but structures lacking. The FKF trying their level best. Since Nick Mwendwa came and get elected into the office, he promised to revive structures at the grassroots to ensure that probably the national team can qualify to 2022 World Cup in Qatar, as it looks like right now. Is it possible?
I would say generally everybody should just take care of his department that is assigned. There's a CAFWA, Kenya Footballers Welfare Association, will take care of the players in terms of education, in terms of championing for their rights, talking to the clubs about the contracts, how they conduct themselves. That's about the players. We'll have the government, which should take care of the infrastructure, because, the federation cannot take care of it. That's building stadiums, making sure that playing grounds are available for our juniors. Coming to the clubs, they have to make sure that this sport must be lucrative. It means that they must have fan base, they must have alternative, sustainable source of income. Not this issue of handouts. They must have their own money, which they can say in the next 10 years, this is our plan. They must have plans, short-term and long-term goals. Coming to the federation, they have to make sure that football is being played the way it's supposed to be. We also have administrators who are not just there at the platform to go for political posts. We need administrators who are there for football, come thick or thin. We don't want somebody, we are here with him today, the next day is an MP or an MCA somewhere, the other day is somewhere. We want people who are fully responsible for football. Generally, qualifying for the World Cup is not an easy task, but it's also an easy task. If you have all these structures falling in place, everything is going well, I don't see if it's a huge task. Because if you see, there are some countries which have done them before. There are some countries which are at war, but they still qualify for the World Cup. So it's why us, we are at peace, but we cannot qualify. It just means we are having our own internal wars, which are not even benefiting anyone. If you can have, just like Ronald said, all the stakeholders has to come together. It's not a fight. Football is something which, in as much as we are enemies, but at the end of the day, we just come one. We are united by
symbol
football.
Of national unity.
So let's just come together. Everybody should come down, sit down, and see how we can move forward. Because we have countries just around us. We have players, Kenyan players playing in Tanzania, being paid well than those who are playing. And yet, if you see the economy, we are much higher. People going to Rwanda being paid well. Why? Just because the environment, their football environment is lucrative. They put up an environment whereby it's just football. So us, we should leave politics aside, leave everything aside, calm down, let's play our game, let's make it as lucrative as possible.
George, overall, and your parting shot in terms of what we can do as a country to ensure that we hit the momentum again and start attracting interest from European clubs. Of course, Victor Wanyama playing for Spurs, and that means that any other player from Kenya can also feature for those prestigious clubs overseas. What can we do?
Well, we have to go back to basics. You may be talented, but you didn't get a coach who took you through the basics. Most of us, I'm sorry to say this, some guys even put on their boots, first football boots at high school. That is when maybe you are joining Form 1. By then you are 15, 16.
Yes.
So we have to go back to basics, ensure that when someone takes the line of sports, he has a coach who nurtures him from the word go. From when he's a kid, we know what direction he's taking. And even if he'll get into football, we know that he has something else. Like Ronald has said, you go back to like education is very important. But we can't all go to get degrees. We can't all be that sharp to go get degrees. So there are technical things that people can do around. There's electronics, there's engineering, there's mechanics, things that you do with your hands, and you ensure that you have something on the side to do. So basically, all stakeholders have to pull together, just like Steve has said. We have to pull together, from the journalists to the football fan to the managers to the government. First of all, give us the infrastructures. We need stadiums. Those who went to Marrakesh recently, I always tell them whenever they come back, what did you see in Marrakesh? Did you see the stadium?
They should have a story to tell.
Then come back home. Look at City Stadium. Ask yourself, what's wrong with us? What's wrong with us as a country? Why is City Stadium asleep for 2 years, as in no football is being played there? How much does it cost to make a stadium, to construct a stadium? It all goes back to everyone, all the stakeholders, from the management to footballers, to the players, to the coaches, to ensure that we pull together. Because going to the World Cup needs a steady team that has featured in different platforms, the under-20 and under-23, the Olympics, and so forth. So qualifying for the World Cup isn't an easy task. For us to make it to the World Cup, we have to ensure that, first of all, we go back to AFCON. It's been 14 years down the line. Go back to AFCON, let's gauge with our continental age mates, then we think of going to the World Cup, because it's not easy.
Ronald Okoth, of course, as we wind up, before we take a break, your final word in terms of giving hope to especially those kids at the grassroots who've watched you from high school and now they're surprised you left football and they think football is a frustrated, venture. Maybe what can you tell them? Is there hope? Is there optimism? Is there a future in football?
Yeah, there's hope in football. What I can say is, I can remember our former coach, Bobby Williamson, back then in Gor Mahia. I think there's something he used to remind us every day. He used to tell us, in Kenya, there's no money. Work hard, play your football here, work hard so that you can go overseas and earn real money. You enjoy the fruits of football. So he used to tell us that thing every day. And we are glad that some of the guys we are with, they managed to get clubs overseas, and they came back and told us, indeed, you can enjoy the fruits of football. So I can tell them there's hope. They should just work hard, and at the same time, they should put the books together and just take football as a career, because it pays well. It's very lucrative. So I think there's hope, and I'm optimistic that you're making baby steps despite all the problems that you are currently experiencing, from lack of sponsorship to players not being paid and to the poor football fans are complaining about. I'm optimistic that maybe in few years, or maybe
things will change.
Things are going to be better. Yeah, because I'm looking forward to a day when our league will also be lucrative. Look at South Africa, the South African League. You watch the South African League, and you can't even imagine this is Africa. They're being paid well, the sponsorship there, the fans
big
are going to be
contrary, because a top scorer leaving top flight, that is KPL, joining one of the South African clubs, and up to now is yet to prominently feature for Cape Town City, that is Masood Juma. That shows the difference between Kenyan league and South African, right? Yeah,
we have a long way to go, and we have better leagues to learn from, and I'm hoping the people we have that are currently in charge are also ready to learn from those leagues. So I'm optimistic things are going to be better in future.
Always a pleasure doing this every Saturday afternoon on Y254. This is the Touchline. My name is Maxwell Wasika. Very, very fantastic Saturday afternoon. Remember our fan favorite segment, the Fan Zone, where we're giving a look and focus on international football. Coming up next, I can see Webster Mwangi, one of the Arsenal diehard supporters in the country, already in studio nowadays, participating in Thursday night football. But what will he be looking forward to telling us up next? Remember, international break happened and several fixtures happened. Brazil against Germany, of course that game happening. Spain routing Argentina in one of the upsets. England, my team, three Lions, which are looking forward, causing an upset during this year's World Cup in Russia. Also drawing against Italy in a 1-1 draw. The last time they won World Cup was in 1966. And even Portugal being beaten by Netherlands, which has failed to qualify for 2018 World Cup in Russia. My name is Maxwell Wasik. Always a pleasure having you on board, Steve. It was glad to have you on board for the first time, and I appreciate your submissions.
Thank you.
Jojo Mondi, always a pleasure having you on board. So is Ronald Okoth. Up next is highlights of what happened during the midweek as far as the World International break is concerned. This is the touchline on Y254. Don't go away.